Welcome to the third episode of Leading the Way. Today we're joined by Nate Moorman, Athletic Vice President at Emmanuel University. We're going to have an insightful discussion on leadership within the athletic department, where Mr. Moorman is going to share with us his experiences and the essential skills required to lead effectively in this dynamic environment. We're going to dive into his personal leadership journey, exploring the qualities that make him a successful athletic leader, and also we're going to glean wisdom so you listeners can apply in your own roles. So join us today as we uncover the challenges and victories of steering a collegiate athletic program to success. Welcome to the third episode of Leading the Way. Welcome everybody. Today it's chapter 3 of Leading the Way, and I'm so honored to have here with me Nate Moorman, Vice President of Athletics here at Emmanuel University. Well, hello Nate, and welcome to Leading the Way. This is our third episode where we're going to talk about athletic leadership or leadership in athletics. So Nate, can you talk about your background, and can you share a bit about your background, how you started or got started in the field of athletics and leadership?
Yeah, sure. I sort of had the traditional evolution into leadership, I guess is the best way to put it. You know, I was a successful athlete in high school, was a captain, so I had natural leadership tendencies, obviously, that the coaches and the team recognized. I went to college on a wrestling scholarship, was a captain, an elected captain of our college, became an assistant coach while I was there, and then evolved into a head coach, and that evolved into an assistant AD position, which eventually evolved into an athletic position, which now is a vice president position. So I guess I would say my evolution of leadership has been that a willingness to learn and to adapt, to adjust my skill set to be able to better serve people. But it's really just your traditional journey. There was nothing crazy in my path. It was just I love to lead people, and that's really what it gave me a passion. Whether I was competing on a team with my teammates leading them, or I was leading the charge and commanding the mat, or whatever it might be, or leading a department. Helping other people solve their problems was really at the root of it. So I'd say my journey is probably your standard climb through athletics.
When did you have the first idea of becoming an assistant coach, for example, and not maybe pursuing a career in sports? If you were good athletic and you were good in your sport, why did you decide to not try to be professional in my sport but pursue this leadership career?
That's a great question. Our it's a painful question. I'll tell you why. Because when I was in college, my objective was to be a high school teacher. Actually, I was from Tennessee. I was in college in Tennessee, and I had a high school position already lined up for me. They were going to pay for my EDS, educational specialist degree, in Georgia. And I failed to succeed my senior year in college, not knowing what God had planned for me. But I failed to succeed as a top-ranked wrestler, a number one seed in a tournament. I failed to succeed, and I saw the impact that my loss had on those that I led as a captain. And that it really floored me. It wasn't just the emotion of the defeat that I was going through, but it was the emotion that I'm leading these people, these guys that I've quote unquote gone to war with in wrestling. And I just realized really quickly that the impact you have on people is far greater than any victories or anything like that you have. And it just sort of catapulted me right into real leadership roles. I mean, when you're elected a captain, that's sort of a humbling thing because you don't see yourself that way. But when you really see it impact people like that, and an opportunity presents itself to continue in that leadership path, that's what happened to me. I say it's painful because you still feel the sting of defeat that led to that decision. But thank God that it happened that way, because that's what's led me here where I am today.
How did you manage to get out of that position of maybe you had dreams of becoming professional? How do you manage to get out of that state of mind and just focus to let's just pursue another journey in my life and get into the leadership? How to get out of that?
Yeah, it's not easy. I don't know that you ever really fully get out of it. You're always kind of battling what could be, knowing, especially if you're intrinsically motivated. and you're highly competitive, which a lot of us are, it's hard to shake that. And again, I don't know that you ever do, but there's just little moments in your journey that just show you really what's more important. And that's your impact on other people, and that's really kind of the heart of leadership, right? So I would say just moments that happen throughout time. It sort of reiterates your purpose and why you're doing what you do. We've had several of them here at Emmanuel. I'd always, when I was coaching before I came here, we had a top 10 ranked team in NCAA in wrestling, and thought for sure we were going to win a national title because I felt to do so. And then, God had other plans for me, and He saw the impact that I was having on people. I saw the impact I was having on people, and I saw the opportunity that I could do something really special here at Emmanuel, and just follow God's will, and it brought me here.
How did you end up here? How was it? How did you know Emmanuel before, or? I
did not. This is an interesting story too, so I'm glad you asked this question. A friend of mine who I had wrestled with, I don't want to get ahead of myself. A friend of mine that I had wrestled with in college, I coached him for a couple years in college after I graduated, when I stayed on as an assistant coach. And then I coached against him when he started coaching in college.
Wow.
He and his wife and my wife, and at that time we only had one son, were at the beach. And we were on an island where you had to drive off the island to pick food up because the owners had not paid for the resort's amenities or whatever. So we had to drive off the island. We'll go off the island. It's 11:30, 11:45 in the morning. We're waiting on lunch to be given to us to take it back to the wives. And he says, you know what you should do? You should go be an athletic director at rather Dalton State, a school in Georgia, or Emmanuel College in Georgia, and hire me to be your first wrestling coach. And of course, I was like, okay, yeah,
sounds like a joke.
We'll see if that happens. 1 year later, he sends me a text message, hey, the Emmanuel College AD position's open. They're also looking for someone who can help them move to NCAA Division II.
Wow.
So I said, all right, well, I'll put my stuff in, and the rest is history. And the first thing we did when I got here is we started men and women's wrestling.
Wow.
And guess who I called? My buddy. And he hired him, and he became our first men's wrestling coach, and an incredible coach at that, and now he's an athletic director at another university as well. It's kind of a wild story, isn't it?
Story, yeah. So how is it so in that position you were, he was under your rules basically, right?
He was, yeah.
How is it to have people that you really get along with, but there's times when you have to deal with them, and okay, you gotta do that,
I mean, it's just about who you are as a person. I mean, if you're genuine and authentic, whether you're friends with them or close friends with them, they know your values, they know how you lead, they know what's important to you, and you know what's important to them. And that helps you kind of navigate what some of those maybe roles of authority are, or sort of your organizational chart on who reports to who. It's a whole lot easier when you're genuine and authentic, and people know that about you, and they know the good and the bad about you, and it just helps you sort of navigate these conversations. And he's a lot like I am, for just using him as an example. So there's a lot of ways we could read each other and know this is the conversation we can have or not, or how to have it. You know what I mean? And I think that's important with everybody that you lead. And I like to think we have that with a lot of our coaches here, the same type of relationship.
Sometimes what I feel when I work with people that I already know is that they get advantage of the confidence there is within our relationship. So for a leader, I think it's very important to set apart what is work and what is then our relationship as friends.
Right.
So it's, I don't know, maybe you found yourself in these positions here because I think you have a good relationship with all the coaches.
That's right.
But maybe with some of them you have a better relationship out of the office or the work than the others, but you have to still be the same with everybody.
Yeah, it can be challenging for sure when you get, people will take advantage of your friendship, not intentionally, you know what I mean? But they'll just, because you're so close, so you do have to still make sure that there's boundaries within certain parameters, that there must be boundaries, and that gets hard because we do have a culture and environment here. In fact, I've heard this from several people just this year, including one of our new employees. It's almost like we go to work and hang out with our friends, but we're doing a lot of work. You know what I mean? Because the relationships are so close. That's not for everybody in our department, obviously, but a lot of people, feel that way in our department. But again, you have to have boundaries within where boundaries belong, you know.
Mm-hmm. So how does one of your days look like? Do you follow any routines or any schedule, for example, from 8 to 4 at the office and then lunch or whatever? I don't know.
Yeah, trying to get lunch at 12. And that's the goal for sure. You know, I've got 3 young sons at home, so just kind of starting from the time we wake up, we're usually up 5:36 or something like that in the morning, getting the boys ready. We get them to school. From there, I try to get a workout in if I can, if I have time, because that's one of my joys. It's really important to me that takes place, and then we come to work. But as far as like what you do daily, it literally changes every single day. And that's what I love about the job. I don't know that I could ever go back to a job that is the same routine. Now there's seasons in being an athletic director. You know, right now we're in the budget season, so we're creating our operating budgets for next fiscal year. We're creating how we're going to generate revenue from our department, what that looks like. Then there's the recruiting season. Once that's set, we're all in on tracking recruiting and our enrollment. And then when the students get here, it's get everybody cleared through compliance and ready to practice. You know what I mean? There's seasons we go through. And of course, there's fall, winter, and spring championship seasons, which are really exciting, really stressful for everybody. And those you have similar things that you have to accomplish, but the day-to-day thing changes so much we've got 53 staff members in our department and 600 plus athletes and 33, well now to be 33 teams with flag football coming on. And so the things that you have to manage with a very, very small administrative staff keeps you on your toes, and it's different every day. Whether it's an issue a student athlete's dealing with, it could be an issue that a parent just needs some guidance and help to get through. It could be an issue coach is going through in life or at work. I mean, it's just different every day. But I would say the routine comes more in the seasons throughout the year, less in the day-to-day.
So from what you say, sometimes it looks like your job might be like a psychologist too. If people are struggling with their personal life, then you're also like economist, I think, because you're working with budgets. So you have a lot of things. What did you study in college? So
I was an education major.
Education major. From there, did you study any master degree, or from there you just kept growing as a head coach and then just learning these skills?
I got a master's degree in education. So I was going to teach, and then I wasn't sure fully I was going to be coaching. So when I got my master's in education in curriculum instruction, my undergraduate was in secondary education in history. Again, because I thought I was going to be teaching and coaching until God had other plans for me. But I was lucky, even in the sports world. I had a Hall of Fame coach as a high school coach, a Hall of Fame coach as a college coach. I was mentored by really good men.
Wow.
Number one, good leaders, good men. Number two, experts in their field. And here's the irony, Eric, is when my college coach was a financial aid director for 30 years, and he just recently passed away at the age of 83, but was very close to all of us who wrestled for him. But he taught us a lot about what it means to be relational, to care for people. But he also was deeply involved with this administrative side, the financial aid side, and the enrollment side at Carson Newman. So then when I went to King, they were moving NCAA Division II. Well, I got hands-on involved with that. They were growing through enrollment, got involved with that. So the more I found myself more involved, I learned more than I could ever learn in a textbook or a school or a degree. I was developing skill sets by the willingness to put myself into situations that would cause me to learn more if I wanted to be impactful in any way, right? Same thing happened when I came to Emmanuel. And a lot of people are aware of this, but we went through a significant debt crisis. So my first tour as a head athletic director, we're in a monumental debt crisis as an institution. And how do we navigate and solve that while joining NCAA Division II? So it was the school of hard knocks.
While COVID?
What's that?
While COVID-19 too?
Right before COVID. So once we got into NCAA and we got
the COVID.
Here comes COVID.
Wow.
We get out of the debt. We get to NCAA, we solved all the problems. We survived. through, as our former president would say, lots of grit, guts, and God. We survived it, and then COVID hit.
How critical was it when COVID hit?
It was very difficult. And you know what's crazy too, Eric, is this is really important, is that that experience of going through that financial crisis and the challenges with that strengthened how we communicate and work together as an institution. So when COVID hit, it was difficult.
But it wasn't that difficult.
But we managed it so well because we had already built systems of trust and processes that allowed us to, hey, this is another crisis. Here's how we're going to do it. Yeah. And everybody's got a job to do. Let's do it. It's really interesting. But that's experience. And so I couldn't trade that for the world. And this isn't the highest paying athletic director job in the country at Emmanuel, right? We're a small school. But what I've gained in experience versus an education or anything else like that is beyond really explaining,
Wow. What is your philosophy when it comes to leadership? And particular, like when the context of athletics, how is your philosophy? How do you tend to leader? Are you like a more traditional side of leadership? Do you like, okay, that's your task, assign tasks to everybody, or just let everybody, maybe work on their own? How is it?
Yeah, I definitely let people work on their own. I mean, I guess a better way for me to maybe kind of answer this, because the way we hire people probably represents a lot more about our philosophy. We're not interested in the X's and O's so much. We're interested in your desire, purpose, your passion to be impactful and change people's lives. We want you to be competitive. If you're not competitive, you don't belong here either, right? So we want to do that, but we want to do it through a different way. And everybody has to understand that when you come here to work, that your value system has to be on display, authentic, and it has to be part of how you run and lead your program, and it has to align with my values and the values of Emmanuel University. Outside of that, there's a ton of leeway in what you can and can't do, right? We work within those confines, but that's a non-negotiable for us, is how you impact people. And I'm the same way. I have to hold myself to that same standard, and are my values, the way I am as a husband, as a father, as a friend, are they on display with how I lead my coaches? Because that's really how we should be effective as leadership, is it has to be real and authentic. And I think sometimes people have different sets of values that they try to run an athletic program separate from how they are as a person, and that will never work. It just won't work, So philosophically, it's just about very, relationships and value-driven leadership. But I don't micromanage at all. And there's expectations that are clear. Once those are laid out, you have to make them happen. And if you don't, we'll find out why, right? What can we do to help you make those happen? And if you can't make them happen, we just need to mutually part ways and get someone in that will make those things happen and align with our values.
So how would be a message to a coach, for example? How do you communicate with coaches? Do you do meetings, like individual meetings, and talk about that sport and that coach and what expectations you have, or how it works?
Yes, this is a great question. I mean, we have an overarching, we have a mission statement. We have a mantra. You might have seen this on some things. It's building champions that change lives. The whole key to building champions is all of our processes that we do in athletics, normally, whether you're here at another institution, right? How do we build champions? Well, we got to train them. We got to teach them about nutrition. We got these. This is how you do it. But then how do you build champions that actually will graduate from here and be impactful citizens? That's the tag, that's the add-on to that. That really sets the stage for all of our strategic initiatives, all of our goals as a department, and then also all of our goals for each one of our individual programs. It's also how we hire people, right? The value system. As far as meeting with coaches, we do monthly meetings. We try to do weekly reminders, but we do monthly staff meetings. We're always trying to be very cognizant of people's schedules and how busy they are. So we don't want to pull them into meetings, death by meeting, just constantly meeting. In terms of working with them individually, a lot of the coaches come to me. We do a lot of our mentorship and one-on-one type conversations about teams at lunch. If you ever see us sitting over there at lunch with someone, the coach, sometimes we're talking about some things they're going through in the program. Or sometimes we'll go out to eat in Royston or Franklin Springs. And then we do our mid-year and our end-of-the-year evaluation process. It's pretty extensive. We have one we have to do for the school, and it's good, but we have something that allows us to dive really deeper into what the student athletes are experiencing, what expectations are being met, what, why or why not, and we can really dive into like, well, what do we need to change for next year? How can we help you change? What do we need to do different? Sometimes a coach just needs to say, hey, I know you're better. You know what I mean? And then sometimes they need a very real hands-on approach because they need some real help changing something.
When a sports program is not working and the outcome of the year or the results are not expected, how do you help the program improve? Is it part of your job or that's coach?
It is, well, it's ultimately part of my job. There's times where we just throw that on the coach, right? Particularly if the coach has the ability to do so. But when you see a pattern of that, then you know that there's an issue. It might not be that the coach might not be a bad guy or a bad girl or a bad woman or whatever. Things might be fine. They're just not leading in certain ways that are really critical to being successful. So how do we get to that point, right? That's what we have to figure out as administrators, because it's not fair to our student athletes to be on a program that's not being successful because of things that could be done different. And so we have to dive in different. I don't know if you've seen these or not, but we do the team culture surveys through ARMS. So we'll send those out in ARMS. We'll take all of that data. There's a lot of conversations we have with students throughout the year to get their feedback, and and not in a setting where it's, hey, what are your complaints, but really trying to hear the truth about what's happening. Not, they didn't play me in a certain game. Well, that can be, you know what I mean? And there could be a reason for that. But like, what are you really experiencing as an athlete? One of our favorite questions we put in there, do you have fun on your team? Right? And I'm not saying do you go and goof off, but fun's winning and training hard and like being part of an environment that just breathes life into you every day and doesn't suck life out of you. Like those type of questions. And then that helps us shape really what's going on. Because typically if there's a pattern of that, there's a cultural issue going on within the program. And we've got to dissect that and find out what's the root of that. Was there something the coach was experiencing during that year at home that was really distracting his effort, In
your experience and all that you've talked about, what are some common challenges that leaders in athletics face, and how do you navigate through them?
Yeah, that's just another really good question. I'm trying to think from just a general approach from the athletic side of it. I think that in the athletic world, particularly, and this might fall more in the coaches side of it, but I definitely have seen this with all leadership, not just in athletics, but sort of putting yourself aside. You know what I'm saying? How you feel you should react, or if you feel like someone's getting the better of you, or whatever, relational reaction that you might have to a situation that's negative, is learning how to put that aside and really get to the root of the problem. I mean, it takes a little bit of tough skin sometimes, but that's a challenge for a lot of people. When coaches are so highly competitive, sometimes it's hard to peel back the layers for them to get to a point where they understand it's not about winning. We want to win. We want to win everything we can win. But when you pull back the layers of it, what are you doing to get there? Because it's not always sprints and whatever we're doing, you know what I mean? Or repetitions of whatever. It's not always how you get there. There's something here and here that we got to get breakthrough, and that can be really, really difficult, for all leaders to do. But the relational piece of it is probably the most challenging. One of the things that I see happen quite often, even here in Emmanuel, when we just talked about seasons, when people go through different seasons, and we know what those seasons are going to be. But it's recognizing and acknowledging that you're in a certain season right now. So you have got to be on top of how you react to situations, because it's probably not how you normally would if you weren't stressed out. I'll use our trainers, for example, because in our spring and winter overlap is a grind for sports information in spring. I mean, it is brutal. We know it's coming. We know it's going to happen. but it can wreak havoc on your emotions and how you react to situations. And we've got such good staff here. They understand. They can feel the flood coming, But it's the same thing with coaches. We're in championship season, Listen, we know you're in championship season, but you've got to really be able to control your emotions, regulate how you relate with other people. That's a real big challenge for leaders. And a leader can do amazing things 98% of the time. But in 2% of the time, they can completely dismantle all of the impact they make as leaders.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So that's probably one of the biggest challenges, particularly in high stress situations.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. From the feedback you receive from students, is there something very demanding, or what's the pattern that you always see and you can recognize? Okay, these guys are not good because of this, or
like with staff.
Yeah,
it's a good question. There is usually a pattern. Typically there is dysfunction. Some of the questions on our thing are about does the team trust each other? There's usually a deep distrust in the team. Now, there's teams with strong culture that may not have the chemistry, so there is some distrust.
So, is this a kind of method that you're following, or who idealized these questions, or who thought about, okay, let's do this and try to seek the real truth from students? Who thought about this?
Yeah, well, we all kind of came up with it as a leadership team several years ago. We would get tidbits on pieces, and when I first got here, we use the word culture. I've got coaches right now won't use the word because it's so overplayed. Mm-hmm. So we had to say, okay, and I'm going somewhere with all this. We had to say, okay, well, we have to define what culture means to them, right? So we did the 3 E's. We did energy. Is it positive or negative, or is it constructive or destructive energy? Is the environment, is it healthy or hostile, right? And then the experience, is it memorable or is it miserable? So when we kind of outlined what that was, those 3 E's, energy, environment, experience, we said, all right, this is our expectation for you to provide strong culture. This is how we're going to define it. From there, we were able to say, all right, what are some questions that will answer these 3 E's? You know what I'm saying? And then we've evolved our every year we look at our team culture survey and we evolve it. Say, this question didn't really give us what we needed. This needs to be reworded. I got a new question I want to add. Take this one out. I think last year we had the COVID-19 question still in there.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so everyone was kind of like, well, I don't know what you mean with that. Well, we should have took that one out. But those questions really, you can read in there. There's trends in it, and we've just learned this through our meetings with students and parents and coaches. When there's distrust amongst the team, when athletes don't feel that the coaches got their best interest in terms of personal development in place, when they cannot say what there's a question on there, what's 3 words that would describe your team's culture? Yeah. We'll get all kinds of answers, but a lot of times they're the same. They're just different words. They mean the same thing. You know what I mean? Like drive and determination. Well, okay, we're getting somewhere because obviously they're feeling that value system of that coach. But when those things are all over, and sometimes they're saying none, and you've got a large population of that, and it's just kind of erratic and all over the place, you start to say, okay, there's a culture problem. So now what is it? Is it that we've got student athletes that probably aren't a good fit to begin with, and they don't really align, or do we, and over time, you're able to kind of come to a realization, oh, you know what? This is a persistent problem no matter whom we bring in. It's probably time to come in and have a conversation.
Have you ever faced cases where bullying was maybe present in teams?
We most certainly have. We've seen it much more on the student athlete to athlete, side of it. We've definitely seen. I've seen coaches who have use a very stern, domineering mannerism to try to intimidate. We usually pick that up just in our conversations with people too, especially when we have something that could be a conflict or something like that. You can usually kind of read how people are going to react to it, and they result back to that. And it's usually a defense mechanism of some sort that they've created, but we've seen that happen. Again, most of the time when it comes to like actually bullying, we see it misused more than we see it, if I'm being honest. We see people say, well, that was bullying. Well, telling you to run down a sprint because you didn't run hard enough is not bullying. That's coaching.
That's another thing. Like, student athletes maybe, or people are saying that they are in bullying situation, but it's not.
And that's just how life is. Some of those words have gotten so watered down and so kind of mixed up, and I don't think most of the time there's much intention behind it. It's just someone feels like they're being bullied when that's not really the definition of bullying. And then we have real situations where that happens.
Throughout the conversation, you mentioned parents like 2 times or 3.
Yeah.
Did you really get involved with parents, or?
We deal with parents quite a bit, yeah.
Really?
Not as much as the student life division probably has to, or I know they have to. We were having a conversation about that today, but.
From my point of view, like being international, obviously my parents have nothing to do here, so it's always on me. So that's why you've been mentioning like parents. I was like, are they really involved in this, or?
Yeah, we're sort of the last. You would hope we're the last person they call. Sometimes we're the first person they call, and they don't even really explore with their son or daughter how to resolve what situation son or daughter is going through. They just jump right to the phone call. We've had parents threaten to sue us over coaches who have removed their kid from a team for going out and getting drunk. You know what I mean? Like everything you think of, and you just think it's just we've had parents that we have had parents that complete all their compliance paperwork. We've had parents that have tried to register their kids for classes and they're 21 years old.
Wow.
I try to hear parents out no matter what. I don't mind hearing them out. I'm not going to, divulge how we're going to handle a situation because it's not really their business. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's not really appropriate to do that. But parents sometimes they just want to be heard, and that's all they need. A lot of our calls are parents who are just concerned, and they're just glad someone heard them out, and they know they have someone they can call if their concern gets worse. And that's appropriate.
And it's appropriate because some of them are paying tuition here, so obviously they're worried about their kids.
Well, their son or daughter is away from home.
Yeah.
I'm a parent, so I understand that. I don't mind having those conversations at all. Mm-hmm. Our non-negotiable with parents is to we don't take any kind of threats on the phone or any kinds of heated yelling conversations, profanity, threatening us or our coaches. Conversations over immediately.
Yeah. So obviously. How is the future of Emmanuel Athletics and, the university looking?
I think it's great. I was saying this the other day, not that I've had years where I wasn't really highly optimistic, but I think a good way to describe how I feel about things is very hopeful, very optimistic. We've some of our teams, when we moved into this league in 2018 in Division II, had a massive uphill climb to make, more than others. And it just takes longer to get there. And so competitively, I think we are, we're one of the most competitive teams in our conference. We're different in the sense that we are very intentional about the spiritual growth of our team. We all know that here at Emmanuel, right? We are on the top most of the time in terms of the number of presidential student honor roll students we have, so we're performing at probably a higher pace than most of our colleagues in our conference. Our graduation rates just exploded over the last few years, and so we're just doing a lot of things really well. I don't know what the big thing on the next horizon is, but I know something really amazing is coming and happening. We're excited about women's flag football coming on our campus. Just really, that whole world is just, the more I learn about it, the more excited I am about that coming. But I'm hopeful for the college. We've got, Greg Hearn as our new president, and a lot of innovation taking place, and a lot of really good people in leadership positions who feel the same way I do. We work well together, and we're all wanting to see some pretty incredible things happen to this college.
How many times do you meet with Conference Carolinas or with NCAA? Because I'm pretty sure you have meetings with them, and I don't know. Conference Carolinas is just an external organization, but teams gotta pay for it to be in conference. How does this work?
Yeah, it's a great question. NCAA fees to be an NCAA Division II member is $900 a year.
Okay,
it's pretty cheap.
Yeah.
Conference fees are much more than that.
It's a smaller institution.
That's really what you're paying for, and that money goes into our conference championships, all the services they provide, and our conference is. This is what I love about our conference is they're leading the way, right? That's their kind of.
The motto.
Motto. They'll jump onto any new thing that they feel like is feasible and is going to be successful. if it makes sense to the conference. But they don't overthink that. They want to be innovative. Well, that's just like Emmanuel. We're constantly trying to do this. So we align in a lot of ways that way. But we have conference meetings. We have AD meetings probably 5 or 6 times a year, and then we've got subcommittee meetings. So I serve on the student athlete. I chair the student athlete well-being committee, and then I'm on the assessment planning committee. So we'll meet in those committee meetings throughout the year. And then we have a big spring meeting where presidents come, senior woman administrator, everybody comes together. That's in Greenville. We do that in May. NCAA, I serve on a couple of NCAA committees as well. I'm on the Women's Wrestling Executive Committee, the Championship Committee for Women's Wrestling. Then I'm on the Regional Advisory Committee for Women's Tennis, which is kind of different, but I'm on that as well. So those are routine meetings that we'll have. But the big meetings for NCAA is the convention, which they do every year, and it's pretty impressive.
How do you know so much about every sport? Because obviously,
I don't.
How did you practice all of them and then just?
I learned right now. This year, I sat in the film room with our volleyball coach, and I've watched volleyball. What I feel like my whole life, I've always liked volleyball. It gives me a heart attack watching it because I don't think I could ever coach it because of the ups and downs.
Yeah.
I give it to them for their ability to do that for sure. But I sat here with the coaches and they were breaking down films and what are we looking at? And I learned more in there. So I'm not even close to saying I'm knowledgeable about stuff. I learn more about lacrosse every time I go out there and watch a game. I'm like, oh, that's what that makes sense to me. But yeah, you never learn it. That's another cool thing about jobs. You always get
learning. Yeah.
to learn something new. And I would say that I know a little bit about all of them, but the master of none. Maybe wrestling, I could probably handle that one, but yeah.
So you really enjoy going out and see the Emmanuel teams playing, right?
I do. I love it. I wish I got to more. I got 3 young sons at home, so I know that time will be bittersweet when they're older and they're able to kind of drive themselves, get themselves places, and I'm able to be here a little bit more. So right now I've got to take them. They play every sport you can think of too. So I'm going home and taking them everywhere. And every chance I get to, my goal every year is to try to make 3 or 4 home events if I can, of any team, and then any team that's an off-campus team to try to go once a year to one of those teams, to pick one of those teams to try to go once or twice to them, away from when they're away from campus. But it's difficult. I love it. There's nothing like watching our teams compete. Knowing all the stuff that goes on to get them on the field or wherever they're at on the court.
The final result, how is it then?
It's incredible.
Yeah. So if you had to give an advice to future leaders, maybe people trying in different aspects, maybe not in athletics but also in a company, what advices would you give them to be successful, not their company but them as leaders? Just
successful leaders. I think you've got to really go on sort of a journey of self-awareness. What are your skills that set you apart and make you an impactful and effective leader? Find those skills, and really make sure that those things are ironed and sharp. But also pick up on the skills that you don't have that are very well, that you're not very very good at, or that you need to continue to develop, and put time into developing them. I think things like journaling and having good mentors that you can talk through from a leadership standpoint is critical in leadership. I don't know any good leaders, not one, that does not have mentors in their life that they can go talk through situations. That's the incredible thing about leaders. They've just sort of grown to these positions of leadership, but they're deeply related and tied together with other mentors and other leaders because of how much you learn from each other.
Is it true that athletes, from what they see on their careers, are better prepared to be leaders?
Absolutely. I'm not saying this to be biased. I think data would probably back that up as well. There's not a lot of, if you were to look through all the leaders in our country in different industries, whether it's CEOs, major corporations, politics, whatever you were going to look in, government, I would say that you would probably have a higher percentage of them participate in athletics than they did. It puts you face adversity, and you're forced to have to deal with your own emotions and how you deal with people in relationships. It's just part of being an athlete. So when you come out, you've already faced that so much that you're more prepared. It just feels better. There's a lot of inspiration in athletics as well that inspire leaders to be leaders. We see that daily. You just turn on ESPN right now and find something. Well, you know what? That's inspiring. It's just kind of a beautiful thing about athletics.
So from this question, how well prepared do you think are students coming out from Emmanuel College?
From Emmanuel?
Yeah. How would you define that?
I think from like our mantra standpoint, as far as being prepared to help people change lives, I think better than most. I think that's one thing we do that I wouldn't say we're second to none. I would certainly would say we're far superior at than a lot of our institutions in the region, in the sense that when they leave here, they understand the importance of service and that being part of how we lead or whatever it might be. But people going into the athletic world, we've got an incredible coaching staff, and there's so many resources within our department and within our sports management division that really helps prepare people for world and sports. But they get that relational side of it, that servant side of it, because of how Emmanuel is. So I think they've got a little bit of a leg up than a lot of places.
Why, from me as an international student, for me religion is not the same. Being here now, I'm learning a lot about religion and discovering new things, obviously. Why is it so important for Emmanuel to be based in Christian ethics basis?
That's a great question. You got a lot of really good questions. Every human being is going to come to a time in their life, everybody, where no matter how much money you got, no matter how many friends you got, no matter how successful you are, where you are alone and you are in deep need of a relationship with Jesus. The ability to recognize that is very difficult if you've not come from a school like Emmanuel, but more importantly, this is a place where we introduce people to Jesus and what that relationship means, not religion, but the relationship with Jesus. That's something a little different about Emmanuel. It's not about being a Pentecostal holiness church member or a Baptist member or a Catholic. It's about having a personal relationship with Jesus. And then we try to set ourselves aside from that. If you look across the entire country, the number of institutions that were founded on religion or biblical principles that are now, if you Wikipedia them, they're affiliated, but there is nothing that even represents or mirrors Jesus, the Bible, or a relationship with Jesus. There's nothing. And it's sad because it changes the world. It hurts people. And I think one of the things that, as athletes, probably one of the things that so many of us, as a wrestler, that we deal with is the ability to surrender. We never give up, right? It's win, win, win. Well, here you get to learn win, 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 don't give up. But there's one time you have to surrender, right? And that's surrendering your life to Jesus Christ, because you cannot handle the world on your own. And your wife's not going to help you, your husband's not, your family's not, the money's not, the house is not. There will come trials and tribulations in your life where you have to surrender your life to Jesus Christ to get through it. And a lot of people don't, Eric. And you see them, and they don't, and they go years carrying these burdens and these bags and this weight because they just refuse to do so. Well, the beauty of this experience at Emmanuel is you get 4 years where it's laid on pretty thick on why you need to do that, And one of the things I love about Emmanuel is that they're so careful about making sure that they're sensitive to how the word's being received by the student athletes. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. It comes off offensive sometimes, right? And it is, because it's true, but it's also offensive. So how can we deliver that in a way that's more loving? How can we show that through how we lead, whether our coaches, our faculty, whomever it might be, And that's just the thing that sets Emmanuel apart from a lot of schools. And there's other schools like us, But yeah, that's why I think it's so important.
How do you see your future? Staying here now? and just keep fighting for what you already built, or you have other plans in mind?
Well, I learned my plans
have
don't
plans.
matter.
Okay.
Okay, I learned that because again, I thought I'd be hunting a national title in wrestling, and here I am. But I don't even ask our interviewees, like when we ask coaches, like where are you going to be in 5 years? You're going to be here. I don't even ask that question anymore because you never know.
You never know.
But I know that we've still got a lot of things that we want to accomplish within our department. But I do feel like God's got something really in store for this department, whether I'm part of it or not. But I hope I am, and so I plan to be here just as long as God wills it for me to be here and be serving.
Yeah, makes sense. So that was all with Nate Moorman today. Thank you, Nate, for having
thank
me
you.
here. And we just shared a little bit about his career as a leader, and also about different topics, how student athletes manage being students, also how to be a leader for coaches, and what it takes to be a vice president here at Emmanuel University. So thank you so much, and I wish you the best.
Thank you.